Good morning. My name is Raphael Igombo. I'm the head of education department and public programs in Fort Jesus. And right now I'm in the main gallery, which is our museum, which has some ethnographic exhibitions, of course, dating back to the 7th century. We have a lot of exhibitions about collections and pottery works and shards that have been collected from different sites and cultural heritage sites that of course showcases what really was traded during the 15th century, during the maritime trade. Now, my presentation was about how the museums is decolonizing the museums. Right now here I'm in the middle of Baluchi exhibition. Baluchis are the people who came into Fort Jesus on the East African coast as mercenaries. They fought on behalf of the Sultan. Behind me you can see a soldier, a Baluchi soldier, who, of course, the soldiers were fearless, and they were brought in by the Sultan to fight the Portuguese on behalf of the Sultan. For instance, here you can see there is a map that shows where the Baluchis came from. The Baluchi from the Baluchistan. Just next to it there is Iran, there is Saudi Arabia, there is Oman, and they sailed down all the way into the East African coast. Now, this is one of the attempts of the museums to be able to decolonize some aspects of the Baluchi people who felt like they were somehow left out in the history of Fort Jesus. Most of them who fought on behalf of the Sultan were left in Mombasa. Some of them stayed back in Mombasa, and they kind of felt like they are outcasts of the community. But now we did this exhibition specifically to be able to showcase what the importance of the intermarriages between the Baluchi people and, of course, how their cultures are. For instance, here you can see there is an exhibition of a bride who has been displayed here to showcase how their cultures are, very similar to the local Swahili people who have intermarried the local people. The other aspect is that we are really planning to come up with some museum exhibition, which is going to be all about the artifacts, the objects that have been taken out of our museums into the Western world. For instance, just in front of me here, we have what we call vigangos. You can see these are vigangos. These are sticks that are normally erected on the graves, or on the grave sites, or even on the homesteads of the local Mijikenda people, the Bantus. Now, these normally signifies the ancient people or the ancestors. And in this case, you find that the local people would go into the vigangos and they'll be able to appease their ancestors on these vigangos. Now, at one point, some of these vigangos were sold to some of the American celebrities who had come to visit way back in the 1970s. And they put them into their of course, their homesteads and houses, but they were haunting them, and so they had to return them back to the museums. So there is this aspect of retribution of objects back into our museums. We've had a lot of discussions of the objects that are coming back with the communities, and trying to tell the communities, now what do we do? Where are these particular examples of the objects supposed to be taken back? Because you cannot really tell exactly where did this particular erection of the sticks came from, or where was it taken from. and so you have to take it back exactly to where it had come from. Now, for instance, for these objects that have come back, we have to work with the communities and ensure that they go back to the communities. They have to have a ceremony to be able to kind of cleanse the objects that have gone out of the communities, and now they're coming back to them. The space that you can see behind me is a space that you're going to use for an exhibition that will showcase some archaeological artifacts that have been done. And there are some people who are archaeologists who are doing excavation in Fort Jesus, for example, or in some of our sites. And some of them are very key. Some of them are very important. For instance, when you look at this, the ruins just behind me, we have some ruins of the church that was built by the Portuguese. It's a Catholic, it's a chapel of the Catholics. And you know, Portuguese were Catholics. So there is a lot of colonization of the history, or of the aspects of the history that we find in this particular church here. Mombasa being dominantly Muslim, you find that the local people would find this to be out, different from whatever they worship, and so they would not really find it important. But we, as the museum personnel, are coming up with a lot of information about this particular church, how it was used, and even how the Omanis used this church to be able to do some laundry work, to do some storage in it, and even how they respected the word Jesus. For instance, Jesus is a Christian word, but the Muslims normally would also respect the word, the prophet Jesus. They not only call him Isa, but he's supposed to be Jesus, and they did not change the name Fort Jesus into any other name, but the name remained Fort Jesus. So these are some of the aspects that you see. Now we are looking at the Africans who worked with the British, or with the white people who did a lot of excavations in terms of Fort Jesus and other other heritage sites, and they were not mentioned. For instance, in Fort Jesus, you'll find that there is Kirkman. James Kirkman was the first curator who did a lot of excavation in terms of discoveries of archaeological artifacts, and came up with a lot of written books, but he did not really identify the people who worked behind the excavations. So we, together with the Honeyman Museums, would want to work with the local people to identify the archaeologists who really worked well.